What's up everybody, Bopalopagus here at Whitewater Disc Golf Course, and we're going to be playing a standard 18 hole scoring round today. Let's get into it. It's a beautiful day out here. It's about 50 degrees and just a very slight breeze blowing through, so perfect disc golf weather and perfect weather to try out a new putt. I normally go with a spin putt that's not very consistent at all, from anywhere beyond about 8 feet, and I was practicing push putting in my living room and I was finding a lot of consistency with it, and I was keeping it on the pole even when I missed lower high. So we're going to try to translate that onto the course today and see what we can shoot out here. We're going to go 2 off the top and then straight up the rest of the way, starting off on a 343 foot par 3, going down the hill and then slightly back to the left. And we're going to start off with a standstill ESP Meteor and try to get a hyzer flip to flat down the hill and then hyzer back at the end back towards the basket. And we flipped it over past flat, but we don't end up in a bad spot. So we're going to try to push it a little bit further with our Ethos Pathfinder and keep it on hyzer the whole way and push it past those first trees and then let it glide towards the basket. And we throw a pretty good shot, leave ourselves probably just outside circle 1, and we're going to try to give it a little any bit here. And not a bad effort, we just don't give it enough angle, but we have a tap in par to start the round, so we're definitely not complaining about that. On to hole 2 now. We have a 505 foot par 4, which seems short for a par 4, and it is, but it does play uphill, probably about 550 feet. And you have to get right of that big tree straight ahead to make the Mando. So with that in mind, we're going to go with our Halo Star turn here and try to turn it just right of that big tree and have it flex back into the middle of the road. And it's not a great camera angle, but we actually threw it on a little bit of Annie, so we turn it into the woods on the right. And we do have a look straight up the road, but we unfortunately landed about 2 feet right of where that would have been an easy shot. So we have to go patent pending around this little group of trees. And we're going to go with our G-Star Gorgon and try to get it flat and straight and have it turn into the shape we want. And I just don't hold on to the disc long enough, but we are past the Mando and we get good distance out of the shot, and we might be able to scramble back up to the basket, but definitely back up onto the road. And we end up actually in a really good spot for how bad those 2 shots have been. But the basket is just right of the 2 big trees and across the road, so we're going to go with our A3 and throw a little flex shot to get around those trees and over the bushes and then have it flex back towards the basket. And we get all we could have asked for with that position and ended up with about a 12 footer for the par. And we do have to straddle around a tree, which I have not practiced and historically have not been very good at, but from 12 feet we're able to knock it down and move on to hole 3 even. And hole 3 is a 266 foot par 3 way down the hill, and you really are more concerned about turning the disc down the hill and keeping it short of the back wall. So we're going to go with our A4 and turn it over and keep it gliding down, hopefully just to the base of the hill. And I throw it exactly how I want, but it must have flexed out a touch early or kicked off a tree, and we end up with another edge of circle or just outside putt. And we were pretty obstructed, basically standing in the middle of that bush, so we give it our best and short it just a couple feet, and it leaves us with a tap in for the par. And on to hole 4 now. We have a 300 foot par 3 and play into that far basket, and I'm going to go with my K1 line Voss here, and it's a little bit too much disc, but I just feel comfortable hitting this gap with it and it's the right shot shape, so we're going to go with it and just try to hit the gap. And I do hit the gap right down the middle, and I skip right at the base of the basket, so it was a pretty good shot, and we end up with about a 15 footer for birdie. Unfortunately, we are a little bit obstructed, so we have to straddle out, and like I said, I'm not really comfortable with that, but we're going to give it a bid. And with the elevated basket, I just want to make sure I get the height right and try to give it a chance, and I'm able to do that, but we pull it just a bit right, and we'll have a tap in for the par, so not bad. On to hole 5, still even. We have a 326 foot par 3, and there is OB on that left side, so we're going to go with our G-Star Gorgon and just try to hyzer flip it and keep it down the middle. and we end up throwing it flat, so not quite the shot we wanted, and we end up throwing it into the right into some bushes. So we're gonna have to scramble a little bit, but it shouldn't be bad. We got far enough down there. So we're gonna go with a little forehand pitch up here and just try to have it pan out right at the basket. And we were able to do that and leave ourselves with about an 8-footer for the par. And on to hole 6 now, we have a 140-foot par 3. I'd say it plays closer to about 200, 220 playing up that hill. And we're going to go with our Ethos Pathfinder here and just try to get it under the basket. And it's a decent shot. You'd like to be a little bit closer with how short it is, but leave ourselves about 20 feet and we're going to be testing out that new putt. And if you miss, it's really easy to roll away. And we hit the chains but missed just left, and luckily we avoid the rollaway, so we'll have a tap in for the par. And on to hole 7 now, still even, and this hole is my nemesis. I do not know what it is, but we got a 196-foot par 3, and it's just an awkward distance, and that hill is weird, and I just don't know. I can't get it. So we go ahead and we throw our anode here, and we're gonna early release it and throw it straight left in the woods. And I am in absolute jail here, so I'm going to try to go with a flick forehand around these trees. There's some trees right in front of me, and I do not really have any kind of shot at all, so we're just going to try to flick it back into the fairway and give ourselves any kind of putt if we can, but just trying to get out of jail here. And it's actually a pretty good shot considering the circumstances, but we leave ourselves about 30 feet again, edge of circle, and we got in between two trees here. We're kind of lined up, so we're going to try to give it a bid, get it straight in there, and just try to put it in the basket. And we revert back to the old putt a little bit and leave it high and right, and we kick a little bit left, but we'll have a tap in for the bogey, which considering the drive, not terrible. And after our first bogey of the round, we are on to hole 8, where we have a 275-foot par 3. And there's always a little bit of a headwind off the river, so you want to make sure that you throw something a little bit stable so that it doesn't flip up into the river. And I'm going to go with my cicada here, and I am not going to do that, and I'm going to flip it straight up, and it's going to turn right, and it's going to keep turning right, and it's going to go right into the river. And so we're going to be re-teeing here for 3, and we're going to go with our Ethos Pathfinder here. And we're gonna give it enough hyzer to not flip up into the river, and we throw a pretty good shot here, leave it about 20 feet. And we are gonna have a putt here in between two trees, but they are kind of framing the basket, so it's not horrible. And we're gonna give it a shot, and it's right on line, but it's just short, and we're gonna have a tap in for the double bogey after that OB first shot. And 3 over through 8, not great, not horrible. On to hole 9 now, we have a 356-foot par 3, and you can really feel the headwind off the river, so you want to go something pretty overstable. I'm going to go with my Raider here, and there is OB on the left side too, so you can't go too far to the left. So I'm going to go hang it right, and not quite over the river, but hang it right, and then let it crash back into the left, and hope that we stay in bounds. It's pretty much a perfect spot that I land in, and there's rocks. That's the OB line, so it checks up into the rocks, and we'll take a meter off, and then we'll have about a 25-footer for the birdie. And we're going to give it a putt here, and we just short it a little bit again and leave it for the tap in for the par. 3 over through the front 9, and on to hole 10 we have a 585-foot par 4, plays straight ahead and then just down to the right onto a little island. And we're going to go with our Lucid Ice Raider here, and we just grip lock it a little bit and pull it right, but luckily we hit a tree and drop inbounds. And we definitely got a little bit lucky with the tree there, but we're going to have about 300 feet into the basket, and we can either go with a step out backhand to the left of the tree or a low ceiling forehand to the right of the tree. And we're gonna go with the forehand option. We're gonna go with our K1 Voss here and try to flex it under the tree and have it hopefully give it enough height to flex back towards the basket and give ourselves a look for the birdie or definitely the par. And we had about a 2-foot gap between the bottom of that tree and the ground there, so I'm not too upset about that shot. Leave ourselves with about 110 maybe feet, and it's just over the hill down to the right there. And we're going to go with our A4 here and try to leave it high, let it stall out and crash towards the basket without going too far into the river. And we just leave it too high and it stalls out way early, and we're going to have about 40 feet left for the par. And it's a good looking putt, but it's just short, and luckily doesn't roll too far away or into the river or anything crazy. And we'll have a tap in for the bogey. And on to hole 11 now, we have a 257 foot par 3. And it's pretty easy. You just want to miss that big trunk in between you and the basket. And there is hazard on the left side, so you do want to stay right. Right of the road is OB as well, so you can't go too far right. And we're going to go with our champion eagle here and try to put it on hyzer over the road and just let it crash back in towards the basket. And we choose to throw it on anhyzer instead for funsies, and we end up OB. So we're going to have a shot from about 100 feet out from the roadbed for 3. Going to go with our A4 here, try to give it a little bit, but you also can't go too far because of the hazard behind the basket. So we're just going to try to put it close if we can't get it in. And it just falls out of our hand again. Not a very good shot, but we'll have about a 20 footer for the bogey. So we'll just have to step up and knock that one down. And with the putt a little bit uphill and with the tailwind, I'm expecting it to drop. So I'm aiming at the top of the band, and that's exactly where I hit. Just don't get the drop. But those are the putts that I'd like to be knocking down in these rounds. But we'll have a tap in for the double, and we'll be on to hole 12, which is a 312 foot par 3. And it's pretty similar to the last shot. You just want to get around that big stump in the middle. There is hazard on the left side up the hill, and the whole dip right in front of us is hazard as well. So you got to get across, and you don't want to be left. And we get our Voss across, and we're right on the edge of inbounds. So we're going to have a putt from about 30 feet for the birdie, and we'll give it a bid. It's uphill, it's a tough putt, but we'll give it a shot. And it's not a bad bid, but we leave it just short and left, and we'll have about a 10 footer for the par. On to hole 13 now, 6 over through 12. We have a 289 foot par 3, and we're going to go with our Raider again. We're going to go forehand to the left side of the tree and try to give it the height to crash back in right towards the basket. And we roll our wrist completely over and throw it straight down into the ground. Do not get any height at all. And I kind of blocked the shot, so sorry about that. And we're left with about 120, maybe 130 feet, shooting 3. And we're going to go with a forehand A4 here and try to come up either short or left. There is a hill past and right of the basket, so we're just kind of come up short of that. And we roll our wrist again and throw it straight into the rocks, so pretty bad. And we're left putting from about 60 feet for the 4. And we just leave it short and right, and it's right on the edge of my range how far I can putt it. I'm not mad at the effort, but we're going to be tapping in another 5, so we got to get hot here at the end. And 8 over now through 13, and on to hole 14 we have a 339 foot par 3. And I'm going to go down the right gap with my K1 Voss and just try to keep it on hyzer the whole way and let it crash back in towards the basket and hopefully avoid the OB of the road. And we're finally able to execute a drive, and we're left with about 25 feet through a couple more trees and into the basket, and we're going to give it a putt. And it's a decent putt, just doesn't swing back into the basket, but we're finally able to grab a par. On to hole 15 now, we have a 196 foot par 3, and you can go left gap and turn it right, or right gap and turn it in left. And you just have to make sure that you keep it short of the hazard behind the basket. And I'm going to go with my Color Glow Cash backhand and try to keep it on hyzer and have it slide up short of the basket. But I end up pulling it a little bit and end up kicking left off a tree and back towards the middle. And with the kick, I end up about 40 short. And I come up just short again on the putt, but we'll have another tap in for the par. And still 8 over on the hole 16 now. We have a 461 foot par 4. And all the way on the right side is hazard, and all the way past the trees is hazard if you go too far. So I'm going to go with my Ethos Omen here and try to get it into the landing zone safe. And I missed my shot way short, just short arm it, and end up near the first basket. And so I'm just going to have to pitch up past the trees and hopefully have a look into the island from there. And I'm going to try to flick my Proton Pilot just to make sure that I get safe and don't go too far back over the hill. And luckily I do slide up past the rocks and do get inbound somehow. and we're putting from about circle's edge for par. And I feel like I've been leaving them short, so I'm going to try to go past the basket here. And instead of doing that, I just completely shorted again. So we're going to have a tap in for bogey, which, considering that drive, really isn't bad. And that leaves us 9 over through 16, but we're on to one of the easier holes in the back 9. We have hole 17, 275 feet, par 3, and it is a little bit uphill, and it is hazard the whole way, so you got to get across. We're going to go trail here and just try to get it flat and get it close to the basket. And it's a really good shot, just flex it out a touch too early and leaves us about 15 feet for the birdie. And we're able to convert on that. First birdie in a while, feels good. And 8 over through 17, and hole 18 is a 176 foot par 4. Double Mando and about 250 feet of carry over hazard with one guardian log to get over and down the hill. And we're going to try to force over flex our champion Gummy Wraith, and we overturn it a little bit and leave ourselves left in hazard, but we do have a pretty easy up and down for par. And I walk up with my cash, but I don't love it for the forehand panning turnover, so I decided to just go with my Wraith again, and I'm able to put it right under the basket for the tap in par. And we were able to go 8 over today with a fair bit left out there on the course, which is not bad for me, but we'll keep improving. And thanks everybody for watching, and I'll be back at you sometime. Pop off.